Gather around the campfire, everybody. We're gonna play a game called Spot the Problem. I'm gonna read something to you, and I want you to guess what the problem is. Spared prison time after judge says web chat with 12-year-old girl was motivated by boredom. A British man who engaged in a number of graphic online chats with a girl he believed to be 12 years old has been spared jail time. The judge presiding over the case argued that the man was motivated by boredom rather than sexual interest in children, and that his shame and remorse seem genuine. Andrew Teal, who's 43, began his chat innocently enough, but the conversation quickly turned sexual, with the married father eventually performing a sex act over Skype, because obviously when you're somebody who's only doing something out of boredom, you're gonna get on Skype and perform a sex act with somebody you presume is 12 years old, but I'm pretty sure you being in court and facing a punishment and you saying, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do it, it wasn't in my best interest, I was just bored, my mom didn't want to touch me, my wife doesn't look at me, my father didn't bend me over, oh, I was just so bored and I needed some sexual interaction, let me hang out with a 12-year-old," and it's all remorseful and it seems genuine. In the conversation going by the name Andy for Fun, he describes how he was getting horny while needing to take care of his urges. He asks what was the naughtiest thing she had done before telling her about a threesome he had during the country's lockdowns. Upon seeing a photo that he believed to be of the girl, he told her how beautiful and sexy she was, wishing he were younger as he would want to be with her. He asked her about her underwear and told her he was thinking what you look like without a nightie. Unbeknownst to Teal, he was saying all of these things to an undercover police officer, which ultimately resulted in his arrest in January. Let's stop right there, because you have to go so far as to have a cop pretend to be a 12-year-old to catch somebody who's saying and doing things where minors are present. That means this is somebody who has repeatedly done this over and over to the point where you gotta try to catch them in a sting operation. But for some reason, oh, he got on all his knees and said, "I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to do this again and again and again and again and again and again and again, I didn't mean it," and you just seemingly believe that is all genuine? No, this dude is a creep. It's confirmed. He had the opportunity to see the child and say, "Oh, I wonder what you look like without a nightie on." This dude was performing sex acts over all things Skype. He is a creep. He admitted to attempting to engage in sexual activity in the presence of a child and attempting to engage in sexual communications with a child. The judge gave him a 12-month suspended jail sentence, meaning that he doesn't have to physically go to prison so long as certain requirements are met, including 150 hours of community service, because obviously when you're somebody who gets away with it for so long and then you get caught and all you got to do is sit there and do a few hours of community service, obviously, you're never going to do this again. During the sentencing, his previous good character, job loss, as well as the overall impact on his family life were also noted, although these comments were criticized as being an insult to injury by a former head of National Online Police Child Protection Unit, formerly the head of innovation at British investment firm AJ Beale. Teal resigned from his position in July without informing the company of the criminal charges he was facing. Teal's lawyer says that he put a stop to his behavior and sought help. Well, at least the silver lining is that he realized his issues and sought help. The problem I have is knowing about this to the point where you gotta hire somebody to create a sting operation, catch him, arrest him, and then look at him with his crocodile tears and say, "You're pretty remorseful. I can see your family and I can see the impact this has had on all of you. I'm going to give you a 12-month suspended sentence where all you got to do is provide community service. And obviously I'm going to trust you to never do any of this again." I'm glad that this person got help, but honestly, I would like for him to have faced a sentence where he's sitting in jail to where he could live out all his fantasies with grown men. Because when you're doing this to the point where you again have to have a sting operation put in place, this sets a precedent that this has happened numerous times before. And the fact that there was really no consequence brought upon this man is completely utterly bullshit. And it reminds me of all these stupid conversations I keep hearing about and how there are people we have to care about and make sure that they're safe and make sure that we respect them because it's an identity to think about having sex with children.
You know, this allegation of groomer and pedophile, it is alleging that a person is criminal somehow and engaged in criminal acts merely because of their identity.
Children can't be willing things in general. It's an odd view in that they seem to will things all the time. They will participation in kickball. They will showing up, participating in the bar mitzvah lessons, bat mitzvah lessons. So there's all sorts of things that they will. You might think, well, maybe there's something distinct about sex that they can't really understand it. It's not clear to me that what they're not getting at is consent. I suspect what they want to say is, okay, they're willing participants, they're voluntary participants. They have some understanding what's going on, not understanding we do, but some understanding, but they haven't consented. Perhaps that's so, but that's a different claim from their being unwilling. There's just lots of activities that children engage in that they don't understand all that well. For example, when you first show up to participate in a judo tournament or you prepare for your bat mitzvah, I mean, you have a rough idea, but it's not clear how much you fully understand it. Imagine that an adult male wants to have a 12-year-old girl. Imagine that she's a willing participant. A very standard, very widely held view that there's something deeply wrong about this, and it's wrong independent of it being criminalized. It's not obvious to me that is in fact wrong. I think this is a mistake, and I think that exploring why it's a mistake will tell us not only things about adult-child, but also about fundamental principles of morality. If we're in the area of legislation rather than morality, here's a rule of thumb. If you don't know whether something has expected good or expected bad consequences, the thumb on the scale should go to liberty. So if we don't know whether willing with 15-year-olds is going to have net good or bad consequences, it's not like we say, oh, well, go ahead and ban it. The idea is that people trying to criminalize something bear the burden. And even having harsh opinions on this before we condemn people for engaging these on the basis of probabilistic utilitarianism, we should know that it does pose a risk for those and only those willing participants. I don't think we know that.
Still the adult child, that's always a big seller.
Oh yeah. Well, that
I had good friends who said, "Are you crazy? Do not write that book."
man, listen, you're talking to a guy who for 25 years has been making arguments more or less in defense of adult child in classrooms. And I don't know if it's the same argument as yours, but I even authored a piece in the Daily Beast in which I called into question the age of consent laws, which is, and I brought to bear the arguments I was making in class. And I'm going to see how they
infringement case that we don't get, they can't give their valid consent, and therefore it's wrong in virtue of being a right infringement. And there's a view that it's exploitative. That even if it's not harmful, and even if it's not a right infringement, it's somehow an exploitation.
Right. I've heard all these. Yes. Okay.
Right. So those are the three dominant arguments. And none of these convince me. So
Me neither.
The harm argument, well, there's actual empirical controversy over this.
Sure. Yeah.
On the rights-based argument, I think, look, we make children do all sorts of things that we don't want to do.
Thank you.
We make them go to church. We make them go to the temple. We tell them to go to school. They got to go to the dentist. They got to go to their sister's ballet recital. And we don't care what they say. And they want to do things. We say no, right? They say, I want to stay up and watch, Creature Feature on WPIX until, 2 in the morning. We say, well, it's tough.
That is all a child's life is coercion.
Right, that's right.
Is coercion by adults often to make the child do something for the adult's pleasure only.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
You say, you're going to go to your great uncle's funeral, even though you want to go, and even though it's not in your interest.
Right.
So the rights-based argument's a little bit hard to follow.
No, it is creepy, and it will forever be creepy. If you choose to seek help, perfectly fine. But if you continuously do this and you see no problem in this, guess what? You're a weirdo, and I'm going to always call you a weirdo. May Christ be with you, you oh so sinful bastards, and I hope hell is something you are embellished in. Subscribe to the channel. I'll see y'all in the next one. Goodbye.